was writing after the fact, trying to canonize or crystallize or articulate what those great poets did in classical Greece, particularly Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles in backwards order, I believe. Aeschylus is the youngest.
And here's this separation. There's a kind of, did you say schism? It's
Schism or it's schism or schism is the ultimate. Schism. But I didn't grow up saying schism. I grew up saying
schism. Is funny.
Yeah.
Right. So, this separation, this schism between artistic disciplines is, pretty new.
It's right.
Because in the East, there's a canon that organizes the practice of art. And so the name of the book is the Natya Shastra.
Oh.
And it's so it begins with a fantastic piece of mythology where the gods are bored, basically. And they go like, come on, we have humans. They need to entertain us.
Yeah.
And so this whole book is about the gods teaching humans how to entertain them. And so they're not only doing that with poetry, they're doing that with theater, with tragedy, with singing, with dance.
Maybe painting by then too.
Yes, and so everything is contained in that book. And even when there is not an art form that is specifically mentioned, because I'm not sure there's actually painting in it.
Maybe not.
Not sure. It's a volume to study, really. But it makes sense when you read about the principles of creativity and the role of emotion in that, and even the types of emotion that are supposed to be expressed in art. You're not going to. It will empower you in your artistic and poetic practice, whatever the practice is. So this is pretty new, and I'm trying to understand why in the West we've come up to such a place that everything is separated. So this is just a consequence. The fact that we consider that the other is not me, that we are completely in different universes. Culturally.
I'm with you, but in Harvey Cox's book, Harvey Cox was a divinity professor at Harvard, and when I was taking a poetry course, summer course at Clark University in 1978, the guest teacher, was Michael True, who happened to have founded the Worcester County Poetry Society. I didn't know at the time. But he lent me a book. We might have been talking about the Tao Te Ching that I had been introduced to in high school. And he took us through Howell, by the way. I remember him taking us through Howell that summer. And in his book, Turning East, now 5-6 years earlier, 7 years earlier, Harvey Cox had a bestseller. Divinity school professor with a nonfiction bestseller called The Secular City, which later I found 25-cent used store paperback. Also life-changing for me. But in Turning East was a thinner book. And in it he asks, this is 1978 now, so in the aftermath of Vietnam War and Watergate, why were so many centers of transcendental meditation opening in Harvard Square? Like 40, he counted them, 40 in the late 70s, mid 70s. And he talks for a few hundred pages. I think it's under 300 pages, it's 200 something. And he concludes that he believes the young people today are disappointed in the Western tradition, that we're in religion as well as mores, all sorts of kinds, all kinds, leave them feeling cheated and are searching for the tradition like transcendental meditation or the Eastern, hence Turning East, where you are not merely reading the label, but eating the contents. That was his phrase. I still remember from 44 years ago reading this book. Is that right?
Very interesting.
And now there's plenty of content in the Old Testament, New Testament, and whatnot, but you don't get that when you grow up. I learned more about the rituals of Mass in the offices from being a music major later than I did from catechism as a Catholic. I left the Catholic Church when I was about 12.
Yes.
But so I'm not saying there is no content in the West, but they don't stress the content. They'll do the thinking for you. They'll do the praying for you. To a certain extent, that's the point of Catholicism, is we all get to heaven together. So don't you worry about it. Whereas Protestantism, you go one at a time, but also Eastern traditions, it's your relationship too, and what's wise action, kind action, moral action, right action.
Yes.
Which the Romans, La Vita Beata, the good life,
Yes.
5 was it Terence? I think the Roman philosopher. They're talking about this, but it seems that the Eastern traditions are fundamentally this.
Yes.
Of the Tao Te Ching, you don't know what it's saying. And your whole life, it's going to inspire you to think about it again and again. Now, interesting, recently, part of the Old Testament that mystified me years ago when I heard the stories in sermons or whatnot, and then read the Old Testament in the King James Version. What is Jacob doing battling an angel?